Today we have a presentation on the state of Jefferson. And I do want to say, first of all, no woo! Today's item is not a debate. Several of our Northern California counties, including our neighbor Yuba County, has passed a resolution supporting the cause of the state of Jefferson. Therefore, this is an information-only hearing to give the Board of Supervisors an understanding of the state of Jefferson, as well as the public who may not have heard the reasoning behind this proposal. We originally allocated an hour for this presentation. However, I want the public to have the opportunity to speak, although I may limit that. I don't want this to go on forever. Therefore, once the state of Jefferson proponents have made their presentation, I will open the session up to questions from the board, followed by public comments and questions. The public will have normal 3 minutes for comments, and if representing an organization, 5 minutes. Any questions that are asked need to be addressed to the board, and once the public portion has ended, I'll try to ask those questions that were presented. I'd like the hearing to last no longer than 3 o'clock, so I ask that your comments be short and not be repeated opinions. And again, I emphasize this is not a debate. No action will be taken, and I would hope that we all leave with a broader knowledge and a better knowledge of the state of Jefferson through this informational hearing. So with that, what I'd like to do is introduce our main presenter, or somebody is going to introduce him. Will be Mark Baird. Will be our principal spokesperson, and I bet you Eddie Garcia with the state of Jefferson is going to make that introduction. Eddie?
Yes, indeed. Good afternoon, Chair Schofield and Supervisors. I first want to express our appreciation for you taking the time to listen to our explanation of what the State of Jefferson movement is, and I really appreciate it. Not to take too much time from our presenters, I would like to mention them by name so that you're aware of who they are. The first speaker will be Steve Baird. He's from neighboring county of Placer, and he is the one who's made all the studies regarding the financial viability of the state of Jefferson as a 51st state.
Steve Baird?
Steve Baird, B-A-I-R-D.
Okay.
He happens to have the same last name as the main spokesperson. However, they are not related. It's one of those coincidences. I guess Scotland produced better people than we thought. But I'm prejudiced for the southern part of Europe, but that's beside the point. He will be followed by Michael Warnke. Did I pronounce it? Michael Warnke. He is from Santa Barbara, and as a result, not part of his county would not be part of the state of Jefferson, but he is very concerned about the issues of lack of representation in our state and federal legislatures. And the last speaker, and I don't mean to say that against the other two, but the best, will be Mark Baird, who took up the mantle of the State of Jefferson movement after it was sort of put on the back burner as a result of Pearl Harbor when it was tried back in 1941. So without taking any more time, and with my repeated thanks to you, I'll introduce Steve Baird.
Thank you, Eddie.
Since every cleanup hitter needs somebody on base to get more runs, that's why they're having me go first. Nevada County, as far as Jefferson's concerned, is one of those counties that means a lot, both financially to itself and to the state of Jefferson. What you're not getting is true value for your tax dollars through Washington or California today. There are 5 metrics that I've used in building the model. It's property taxes, state personal income taxes, federal tax return, sales taxes, and gasoline taxes. All the other fees that you collect, which in Nevada County is about $31 million, worth of extra stuff that you charge for, is not included in this model. Also not in this model are corporate income taxes. We want Jefferson to be one of those states that industry wants to run to, and so we feel that we can do without those taxes. They'll, of course, still pay federal income taxes, but not to the state of Jefferson. What I'm going to do now, I believe you have this handout, or at least it's available to you, is walk through the financial picture for Nevada County. Nevada County's revenue sources would total over $1 billion. Of that, property taxes are just about $180.5 million, and that's in secured and unsecured taxes. In Jefferson, 100% of those taxes will stay with the county of Nevada. You won't have any portion of that going to the state or the feds. That's your money, you've raised it, it's your property values. The next piece is state personal income taxes, and that comes in a little over $320 million. And that number is generated from the 98,292 individuals that you have in the state, and they have a per capita of almost $48,000 each. At an 8% tax rate, ends up being a little over $320 million. Of that, 85% stays in the county of Nevada, 15% of it goes to operate in the state of Jefferson. Federal income tax returns is a majority of what any county would receive back. Using 88 cents on the dollar returned from the federal taxes from the residents of Nevada County, 85% of that coming to Nevada County, that would raise $527 million. So you always hear about how much money each state gets back. We're using the 88 cents model. You get 85% of that. 15% of that would go to operating the state of Jefferson. Sales taxes. Of the $1.077 billion worth of sales that Nevada County has, at an 8% tax rate, 33% of that would stay in Nevada County for a total of $28.5 million. And the last portion, which is the smallest, would be a 50-50% split between the state of Jefferson and the county of Nevada, is fuel sales, and that would be a little over $9 million. So in total, you have $1.065 billion that stays in the county of Nevada. Of that, using your old budget numbers, you have just slightly over $200 million in your 14-15 budget. K through 12 expenses for Nevada County are $132.6 million, leaving you a residual of $732 million plus, not including the additional $31 million you raised through other fees and sources. So you're closing in on $750 million. What would this be used for? Well, the state used to provide a lot of services. Roads, for one thing. You would now pay for the roads in your county. Infrastructure. You would be responsible for the infrastructure in your county. Cities incorporated would be responsible within Nevada County as well. So everything that the state used to pay for, you have the money for. You decide locally how that money gets spent. Okay, the state was not going to tell you, we like this project, we like this project. Now, if you need state resources, let's say that you're putting up a large engineering project, and you go out and say, well, we don't have the engineers for that. You can call up the state. The state's not going to have a corps of engineers, but they will have engineers that they can loan out, help you build a project, put it out to RFP, you make your selections, you build your project. They go back to the state. So whatever happens in Nevada County happens locally, and you're the ones who make that decision. So right now I'll pass it on to Mark. He'll talk to you a little bit more about representation. If you have questions, we'll save them until the end because I believe that's what you wanted to do.
Guys, but if we could hold the applause, I think that would be great.
Okay.
This is Mike, am I right?
Yes, Michael Warnken. Let me see here. I got to apologize. I didn't even know I'd be here today, so I kind of threw this together as quickly as I possibly could. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Let me see here. I've studied ethics and public policy at UC Santa Barbara. I'm considered by many to be a constitutional scholar. I've read both constitutional conventions in California, 1849 and 1879. I read most of the history of the making of California, Hubert Howe Humphrey, Hubert Howe Bancroft, and all the books that he wrote on the early forming of the state. I've read the 1787 convention, most of it, a lot of English history, English law, British history. I know my stuff pretty well. So my talk today is mostly going to be on the issue of representation. I wish I had my charts here today. Of the 50 states, California, bar none, has the worst representation. In the lower chamber, if you compare the best state to the worst, New Hampshire has one representative for every 3,200 people. And California has now one assembly member for every 500,000. The second worst representation is Florida and Texas, relatively tied. Their lower chamber reps have 160,000. Our lower chamber is 3 times worse than the second worst. Our representation that we have today at 40 senators and 80 assemblymen was established in Colton Hall in Monterey in 1849. Colton Hall can fit in this room. I don't remember how many people were in there. I think it was about 24 that were picked across the state. It was the last of the 7 military governors. So it was Brevet General, gosh, I'm drawing a blank on him. I feel it's so important too. Bennett Riley was his name. And he was the last of 7 generals who basically were the appointed governors for California. And he formed the Constitutional Convention. In fact, the outline of the state of California was designed by him. He quite literally took a straight edge. If you notice California's shape, it's relatively straight. He just took a straight edge and drew the lines. He formed the first 5 counties of the state, which were Sacramento, San Francisco, Santa Barbara, Monterey, and Los Angeles. And after he formed that, he formed the other 5 counties. So we began with 10. And from the 10, they drew all of the convention members. So every county had a representative in the 1849 convention. And after the convention was held, it was put to a popular vote within the state of California, and it passed a simple majority. And every county had at least 1 rep in each chamber. Today, there are only 2 or 3 counties that actually have their own representative. The representatives were set at that point in time that let me see, it was the assembly would be having 24 to 36 members until the population be 100,000, in which it shall be regulated by law that there shall be 30 to 80. The Senate shall be no fewer than 1/3 nor more than 1/2 the size of the assembly. So in 1850, the assembly was 36 members and the Senate was 16. Each assembly member had about 2,500 on average. And the Senate was about 6,000. In 1852, they increased the assembly from 36 to 63 because they'd already hit 100,000. And then in 1854, the assembly hit 80, and it's never increased. So the assembly has been fixed at 80 for over 155 years now. The Senate was frozen at 40 in 1862. And in the 1879 convention, they had a vote 44 to 45 as to whether or not they should increase the size of the assembly to 120. And that vote fell and lost. At the end of the convention, they agreed that the number of reps needed to increase. And what they really looked at was New York. They said, New York has 5 million people and 120 representatives. If we have 80 and we have less than 1 million people, why would we need to increase it? We have 40 million people today, and we still have that same 80. Every county used to have 1 representative. Representation is quite simply the most important issue there is out there. We all know California is broken. It is broken badly. I don't even need to give you all the examples. What did we dump? I saw some crazy, and I don't want to misquote it, but it said 40 trillion gallons of water we just dumped in the ocean. And our own government Our 40 senators, our 80 assemblymen, and our attorney general and the governor, these are our stewards. I'm not hearing about them complaining about this. They're pushing measures forward to increase our taxes to pay for all this stuff. The greatest issue with representation, I really prefer going back to England had it better than we did. There was a great fight in Parliament one time. It was called the case of the Five Knights. And what happened was King James, he was trying to tax the locals to pay for wars for some of his fellow monarchs. And a number of the knights who didn't want to pay the tax said Parliament hadn't been called, and we shouldn't have to pay this tax. And they got summarily arrested and tossed in prison. And it came to Parliament, and the issue was that only Parliament, in fact, could pass a tax. In fact, quite honestly, it was the issue that grievances and supply. The only reason you pay taxes is because you have your grievances answered. We're at the point here, and as I said, originally every county in California had a representative. You had the ability to have your own representative, and you went and you met with them, talked with them, and you said, this is what we want advanced in Sacramento. Today, numerous counties, you have to pool for just a senator or an assembly member. A lot of counties today have to pay for lobbyists. You don't even have your own representative. The idea that Five Knights would be thrown in jail over supply, and as Lord Koch said, it's supply and grievances. You only get the power of the state because you answer our grievances. At this point in time, entire counties don't have their grievances answered. I kind of got involved in this because I saw it, it was big news. When I was down in Santa Barbara, I read it in the LA Times. Siskiyou County just voted to leave California. They sent a petition, and I remember telling Mark, I said, you have to mail it to Sacramento. I mean, we all know that it was communicated through the press, but you kind of have to officially send it to Sacramento. And it got sent. They turned it in. They brought, 300 people from the northern part of the state, from Siskiyou while it was on fire. While the fires were going last year, they got 300 people to come down because this issue of splitting California was that important. That petition has not been answered. They haven't given them a yay or a nay. I'd like to think that if a county board of supervisors set forward a petition, that you'd get answered. Entire counties are being ignored. Our representation is so piss poor that counties can't even have access to the governing body. And if you don't have access, what do you think the common citizen's access is? We're getting run over. We're paying taxes for this monkey business, this circus that's going on in Sacramento, and we have no access. We have no say. I challenged the issue of representation a number of years ago, and it was kind of funny. I brought it to federal court, and I said, 40 and 80 cannot represent the common citizen. I made a mistake, and it got dismissed on that. But it was interesting because the prison guards, they challenged me because they like 40 and 80. They like 40 and 80 because to them, what's the majority? It's 21 and 41. So with 63 votes, they can do anything. The common citizen can't have access. We don't have access to the lower chamber, which has 500,000 people, which is supposed to be the House of Commons. I sent emails to the reps in New Hampshire. I hear back from them. And I don't hear from their staff or their assistants or somebody they hired, because that's what we do now. Instead of adding representatives, we now give the assembly members larger and larger staff. And think about how that works out for somebody challenging them when they run for office. Because when they run for office, it's well expected that everybody who's on their staff works on their campaign. The bigger the districts get, the less and less each of us matters. The more we pay for, the more their representation ignores us. And unless we increase representation, there is no way to fix this. And it is my belief, since every county collects taxes, every county should have at least one. For anybody who thinks that's absurd, let me tell you something. The idea of taxation without representation. The founders The founders, and I think a lot of people marginalize, sort of the Tea Party for whatever reason. They want to say, a bunch of malcontents or whatever. The original Tea Party was based on the fact that we were being taxed by Britain, and we didn't have any representatives in Parliament. And it was John Adams who basically said, no, Magna Carta and Parliament and all these other rights that we have listed here, we as citizens, we as British citizens don't even seem to have these rights. And we should at least have somebody in Parliament. And by the time that the British finally got around to saying, you know what, we should give our 13 colonies, I don't know, I think they came up with 3, 5, or 7. It was some odd number. By the time they finally said, yeah, we probably should do that, we were already shooting. Because we were so sick and tired of being taxed without any access. Britain's answer to us was that we were virtually represented in Parliament. We're virtually represented in Sacramento today. When you have 500,000 people per representative, the bigger the districts get, the more it costs to run for election. So it's to an advantage to the incumbents not to increase size. Besides, if they increase the size, it would water down their power. They like their power. It's not about me. It's about them. It's not about the common citizen having access. And yet, that's what it really is about. We didn't fight a revolutionary war with the British so we could do it to ourselves. And that's where we're at today. We're at the point where we have taxation without representation. The bigger the districts get, I can show it with a 93% correlation. Social situations generally have a 30% correlation. I have mechanical correlations with the size of the district and the amount of money that's spent. The bigger the district, the more money the incumbents can spend, the less money that the challengers can spend. They're just destroying. We don't have elections. Until this redistricting that we had recently, it was scary. For the 10 years prior to that, the Assembly had approximately 400 elections. The Senate, which is half as big and they have twice as length of a period for their holding office, they had only 100 elections. So it was 500 elections. Carol Mignon, who was the senator for San Francisco, was the only person to lose. So if we have 500 elections over a 10-year period in our California legislature and effectively only one person loses, are these elections real? And if they can get reelected at that high of a rate, and it doesn't really matter what the rest of us think, I mean, up to the point I filed my lawsuit, the favorability in October for the California legislature was 24%. By the time October rolled around, it dropped to 19%, and at that election, nobody lost. If you have a favorability rating of 19%, that means 80% of you should lose your job. Everybody got reelected. And the real truth is, and maybe this is a scary thing, because I want to tell the truth. It is the truth. In the last election, the primary was what I was mostly concerned with. I think it was approximately 3.7 million people voted, and I could be off by a little bit, but I looked at it the other day, and I think that's the number I came up with. We have 2.4 million government employees. I think they vote at 70%. Most of us who vote, we never really see the results of our vote. We're not really sure what it looks like. But I think the government employees at this point in time, I think they know that they affect the elections, and I think that those people holding office know what kind of influence they have. And we have given them salaries and retirements to the point where we can't even afford it. I think they control the elections. I think in the primary, there are 50% or more of the electorate is now a government employee. And they're drawing from us. And we're getting damaged between the taxes and the police power that they have. And they're damaging us. We have 500 agencies in California. There's no oversight. What was the Park and Recs District a number of years ago? What did they ask for? Another $40 million in a petition drive? And they found out, we had $1 billion. We forgot about that. It's because 40 people and 80 people can't oversee the 560 federal agencies that we have, or state agencies, excuse me. We have more members of the executive branch than we have members of our legislature. In my lawsuit, I made the point that we had better access to the federal judiciary than we did to the lower chamber. Simple, most important issue in this state, and really in the federal government, but in this state for at least right now, is that 40 senators and 80 assemblymen cannot represent 40 million people. We have taxation without representation. And all the problems that we're experiencing will continue to fester and get worse as the population grows and the districts get bigger. And their oversight of the other branches of government is non-existent. Last impeachment of a judge we had was in 1929. So I guess I'll leave, I think I've said enough at this point in time. Again, I wish I had my charts to show you. The biggest problem is representation. The immediate need is to increase it. It needs to be increased drastically. The amount of participation needs to go up. The elections need to be more competitive, and people need to have access. People need to be able to have access to the lower chamber, and I believe that each county should have at least one senator. I think Reynolds versus Sims has talked about a lot. I'll tell everybody the truth. The reason it was decided the way it was decided is because we have 40 senators in 58 counties. If we had 58 senators, of all 50 states, it was so strange. Only one state, I think it was South Carolina, and I could be wrong about that because the records are so difficult to get a hold of. But only South Carolina actually had the same number of senators as they had counties. Everybody else didn't, so everybody just sort of went with it. But I believe that every county should have a suffrage in the state chamber. And if people believe that too much power would accrete to the north, well, then there's a solution. You can split the counties in the south and give them extra senators too. This isn't an impossibility. And I guess the last thing I'll say is I've studied the state splitting process. It's doable. No one's done it right, but it's doable. There's only two states that have actually used Article 4, Section 3. It's Maine and Kentucky. They used it. Everybody else used, like West Virginia. They applied to be part of the northern states when Virginia became part of the South. So they used a different process. But this is doable. It's very doable. Anybody who wants to scare you or say it can't be done or it won't be, it's not economically feasible, I'm sorry. Wyoming has 585,000 people in about the same size geography. It can be done. It can be done. And you don't need 560 state agencies to run a state. You don't. This is about self-governance. This is about home rule. And it's about time that it happened. That's it.
Thank you, Michael. Well, he's from Santa Barbara. Oh,
Mark Baird.
And where are you from?
I'm from Siskiyou County.
Okay.
Just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a reserve deputy sheriff with Siskiyou County. I'm a recently retired 747-400 captain. I've spent 40 years flying all over the world. I've been to every socialist pest hole there is, and I agree with Margaret Thatcher. Socialism won't work because eventually you run out of somebody else's money. And that's one of the reasons why we're here today, because of what Michael alluded to, representation. King Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun, and he was right. Everything being tried today has been tried many, many, many times before throughout history in many, many countries all over the globe. And the model that changed the dynamic in the world forever was constitutional republic. We were crawling around in the dirt, scratching holes in the dirt with sticks until constitutional republic. And it was the most important experiment in the history of the world. And Thomas Gordon said in Cato's letters in 1721, every plowman knows the difference between good government and bad. How does he know? He knows because the effects of government on his own life and that of his neighbors, and he knows whether the fruits of his labor belong to him or are going to be confiscated or taxed into insignificance. Everybody knows that. I looked up GasBuddy.com, and the average price for gas in the United States of America is around $2.63. It's about $3.63 in California, the average price. $1 a gallon. What do people on fixed incomes do with that? What do people on fixed incomes do after the chicken law? Chickens have twice as much room in their cage now, but senior citizens who buy eggs for protein pay twice as much for eggs. I mean, how do those things really help us as a state or a nation? So we're going to come back to this representation first because, quite frankly, this is about representation and nothing more. This is very simple. We have no representation. We are irrelevant. Your vote is irrelevant. This county is irrelevant in state politics. And that's what we hope to affect. I'm not a member of any political party. I couldn't care less about them. I don't like any of them. There's no political party that has served me for a very, very long time. However, good representation does serve me. The people here, you people, are elected by the people in this room to serve this county, and you do an excellent job. And one of the reasons you do an excellent job and why this is such a beautiful county is because people can look you in the eye. And when they're angry with you, they probably corner you in Walmart and give you a hard time. I know my supervisor, I see him coming, he's my neighbor. We don't have a Walmart, but okay. Costco and Auburn then. But I corner my supervisor all the time, and I give him a hard time about a lot of things: law enforcement, child care, AB 48, AB 109, the fact that the 11550 codes have been destroyed so that we can let 10,000 people out of jail. And now when I catch a crackhead who's just burglarized a house, as long as it's less than $1,000, you know what I get to do? Give him a ticket. And I can take him to jail, but the jail sergeant's going to say, "Deputy, no busy work tonight. Give the guy a ticket." And so I give him a ticket, and then he fails to appear. And I'll see him again the next time he burglarizes something, but those offenses are not cumulative. So you know what I do? I give him another ticket. And then I call and say, "Would you like to transport on the warrant for the failure to appear?" No, just give him, cite him out. We'll catch him the next time, or if he ever shows up, that's when we'll try him. Those are the kinds of things that lack of representation have gotten us. So if Reynolds versus Sims dictates that one man, one vote, and we cannot have this representation, how does the state of Jefferson propose to do it? And that's a good question. We propose to do it because the Supreme Court went on, and we use the principle of jurisdicta. The Supreme Court went on to ignore itself in a very important case after Reynolds versus Sims, and that's the Brown versus Thompson case, in which the majority justice said, "The opportunity for oppression of the people of this state or any of them is greater if any county is deprived a representative in the legislature than if each county is guaranteed at least one representative." Niobrara County was a very small county in Wyoming with 3,000 people, much like Sierra County. In their gerrymandering and their redistricting, they were rounded down to 0 state representation. So they sued. And they won their suit based upon that majority opinion. Because votes cannot represent rocks and trees, that's correct. But votes can represent communities, and diverse communities have diverse needs. Mojave County has different needs than Siskiyou County or Nevada County. For example, in Siskiyou County, because of the environmental regulations overseen by CAL FIRE, and I'm sure you remember the Moonlight Fire here and all the lying, cheating, and stealing that went on over that. But in Siskiyou County, 250,000 acres burned. 250,000 acres. That's the equivalent to 745 cars idling for 1 year for each acre on fire. And I went in, I was a deputy in that. I was dragging people out of their houses while the helicopter was dropping fire retardant on us. In fact, it ruined my partner's uniform. I laughed at him. But we were dragging people out of their houses while they were on fire, and I saw the black box map. Here's how CAL FIRE fought the fire in Siskiyou County. We're going to let it burn to Highway 96, and if it gets to 299, then we'll get serious about it. And there's Highway 1 on the west and Highway 5 on the east. We lost 2 billion board feet of marketable timber that could have done someone some good, could have done the owls some good. I don't know what the carbon footprint of a 250,000 acre wildfire is, but I think it's pretty big. But in their infinite wisdom, the United States Forest Service is going to allow us to harvest 4% of the dead lumber, 4%. That's the equivalent to production for any good mill for 1 month. That's all we're going to harvest, because spotted owls need dead timber too, they said. And that's CAL FIRE. That's the state of California dealing with the county of Siskiyou. You guys had the Moonlight Fire here. And in that, the United States Forest Service and CAL FIRE did so much lying that the judge in charge of that case recused all of the attorneys on behalf of CAL FIRE and the U.S. Forest Service, recused them, because there was so much lying and deceit. In fact, when CAL FIRE was crying broke, they found out that CAL FIRE, in fact, had a huge slush fund, which brings us to the SRA fire tax. And we'll talk about representation again. If you draw a line on the northern border of the Angeles National Forest and go approximately east to west, more than half the representation in California is below that line. More than half. A Los Angeles senator introduced the SRA fire tax, not a tax, and his constituents, oddly enough, don't pay the tax. What a wonderful revenue generator that is when you can introduce legislation, you'll receive no fallout from your voters. I tried to email this guy. You know what happened? It bounced back. Well, you're not in my district. Email your own rep. And I emailed back and I said, my own rep's against this. He said, well, so he forwarded my email to my own rep, and nothing happened. But now here we are, collecting $72 million a year in illegal tax, and none of it goes to CAL FIRE. And if it does, they didn't spend it wisely. But most of it goes to administration, goes into the general fund, and I think about $1.5 million goes to CCC so they can weed whack on the edge of the freeway in some places. But that is money that could go to children and services and roads and police. We have the Northwest Forest Harvest Plan. And that was that crummy plan that the United States government ginned up so that rural counties would be tossed a bone instead of the tax revenue they used to receive from healthy stands management. Using only the timber harvest plan alone, Siskiyou County used to pay for the entire sheriff's department, the entire roads department, and the entire public instruction department. So when the spotted owl came and the state of California was handed management for the spotted owl, came the hooting rule, where you walk into the forest and you hoot for an owl. And if you hear an owl, that 500-acre circumference is now off limits to logging. So you go down the road another 500 acres. If you hear an owl, you don't have to see him, you don't have to see his nest, you only have to hear them. Biologists call that hooting. You can't log that 500 acres. You could be literally following the same owl all day long as you scare him from tree to tree. But our logging in Siskiyou County went to zero. Now we have something like 94 billion board feet of timber that grow in California every year. That's our annual growth. We harvest 4% of that. As you well know, there are only two ways to get fuel off a mountain: mechanically or burn it. And one of those two things will happen eventually and put your communities in danger. So one of the arguments against Jefferson is, what do we do about the feds? The feds own 52% of the land in California. Well, oddly enough, in California's Enabling Act, it says, and the Enabling Act is the legislation that creates a state, it says that California enters the national stage on an equal footing with the original 13 states. In fact, that's in everybody's Enabling Act since 1845 or 49 in the Pollard-Lessee versus Hagan case, where Alabama was created and the federal government wanted to keep the intercoastal tidelands and keep the water. And there was a piece of land that was inundated, and so Pollard-Lessee sued, and he won. And the federal government, the Supreme Court said, no, this is not a matter of property rights. It's a matter of state sovereignty, and no state would enter the Union on a secondary level from the original 13. John Adams said that. He said, why would anyone want to become a state if they don't enjoy equal jurisdiction with the original 13? You'd be a second-class citizen immediately. And it would stifle and limit your ability to govern well for your citizens. And once again, this isn't about party politics, this is about liberty. Now, what you do with your liberty in Nevada County is your business. We have a very strong committee in Mendocino County because they want the liberty to make local decisions locally. I don't know what those decisions are. It doesn't matter to me. I don't live there. And they have different problems than I do. I don't think they want to frack. They should have the liberty not to frack if they don't want to. If they want to grow medical marijuana, they should have the liberty to do that too, provided their neighbors have the liberty to not have to live with the crime and the traffic. And that's where local decisions made locally should take precedence. We just enacted a marijuana ordinance in Siskiyou County. We're one of the last counties to have a marijuana ordinance. 18 properties fell out of escrow immediately when we enacted that ordinance because the larger grows are going away to where the pickings are easier. Now the neighbors have the liberty to say, I don't want to live next door to that. I don't care if you have your, what they call their medicine, but we don't want the crime and the traffic that cartel grows bring to our county, and the state would do nothing about it. And the federal government would do nothing about it, even though it's a Schedule I substance. They kick the can down the road. And what we see in our communities, because the state acts illegally, on an illegal basis, is that crime is on the rise, property crime, drug abuse, spousal abuse, elder abuse, all of those things are on the rise. You know, you're doing well here. You have a beautiful county that's well governed, you have a budget surplus. But when you look at how the state of California conducts its business toward you, I think you can see the line may be slightly down. And it shows no sign of reversing because you have no representation. The Brown versus Thompson case allows us to create a state where each county has at least one representative in the upper house and at least no less than one representative in the lower house. I think one of our opponents said something like, well, what will Placer County do? They have 300,000 people or something, and Sierra County only has 3,000 people. Well, my answer to that is, that's what we're doing now. California has 20 million people per United States Senator, and the state of Wyoming only has 450,000 people. I can't remember one single debate where the state of California said, hey, that's not fair. Wyoming has as much power in the Senate as we do, because there is some selflessness in the United States Senate, not selfishness. But Placer County would be 2/3 better off, because right now they share a state senator with 666,000 of their best friends. And Sierra County can't get within 100 miles of their state senator unless they're willing to really get up early. So I can't imagine that if we supplied a state senator to Placer County that they would begrudge their smaller neighbor from having representation. And that is checks and balances, gentlemen. That was the last time California worked, was pre-Reynolds. Because we had less than $5 billion in long-term debt. We had roughly one state senator per county. It wasn't one each, because some of the smaller counties had to share, but it was close. I think it was no more than 3, and they had to be contiguous. So it was nevertheless pretty close to direct representation. Less than $5 billion in long-term debt. After Reynolds versus Sims, by 1987, it's 13% of GDP, and it's creeping up past 20% now. By different estimates, we may have $1.3 trillion in unfunded liabilities. If we act now for more representation, as Steve pointed out, we can manage this, we can afford it. And remember, financially, the first day in the state of Jefferson is going to look like the last day in the state of California. But we will have no place to go but up from there, because we'll have direct representation in a state that attracts business. 6,500 businesses bailed out of California last year. Were they the good ones or the bad ones? Were they the ones that thought, you know, California is a great place, I think I'll leave. Making lots of money here, let's go to Texas and make less. I don't think so. Productive people leave California all the time. Our children are leaving California. They're not coming back because there's no opportunity here. We don't lack opportunity because of politics. We lack opportunity because we lack representation to change the dynamic when we see fit to change it. So the case is very clear for representation. I have Stan Statham's bill right here from 1992. A lot of people are worried about college educations. Stan proposed that all of the new states, he proposed 3 states, share in-state tuition with each other. In fact, he wrote it into his bill. We would do the same thing. Stan said that public employee contracts would not be alterable. He was right to put that in, because Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution says no state can make any law that affects contract law anyway. The state of Jefferson has no intention on stealing anybody's paycheck or their retirement. That's not what this is about. This is about the representation to reclaim property rights and individual liberties so that we can flourish as a people, and so that you can govern in order to better the lives of your citizen and the lives of the people in your county. So Stan had a lot of proposals that we would plan to incorporate. All professional licenses and credentials issued by law would remain until they expired, and by then the new state would have processes in place. There are a lot of things like that. And 8 county governments agree with us, 8 of them. The Declaration itself accomplishes nothing. It causes nothing. You don't have to do anything after you sign it. You don't have to ask any agency in your county to do anything. It doesn't alter any process or procedure. According to the county attorney in Modoc County, because they're, Lassen County, the board turned to him and said, what does this do? And he said, this is a political statement that will advance the process of representation a step further, in that this county will have standing in that process. In other words, this declaration legally accomplishes absolutely nothing except it buys you a ticket to the discussion when representation is discussed. And it will be. We already have enough counties to do that. I'm not here to sell you something you don't want. That's not what we're about. In the Jefferson movement, we decided a long time ago that we are going to tell the absolute truth about everything we know. Everything I've said, I can give you a document, cite a case, show you where I found it. If it's not on me right now, it's in my computer and I can pull it up for you. I can verify everything I've said. We have a very justicatable case for lack of representation and dilution of vote. Now, if we take enough declarations to the state of California to introduce Article 4 state split legislation, and we have that now, we're simply trying to give all of the counties that want to join us the opportunity before we introduce legislation. But it will be introduced. As I said, we are going forward. We have enough participation now. But if you join with us, you will be able to direct how that discussion goes. Now, if we're ignored, and let's face it, that's highly possible, right, because we don't have representation. And when I spoke to Darrell Steinberg's legislative analyst, and a very intelligent woman, a lot of good things to say, I gave her the same pitch I'm giving you, and at the end of that she said, I'm not opposed to what you want to do. You make a great many compelling points. Your problem is Sacramento hates change. And what I said was, so you mean people who govern from between 500 and 900 miles away from us would subjugate an entire people because they hate change? And she said yes. But she did a quick count, and she's thought, prior to the last election hitting bottom, we'd have to change 16 votes in the Assembly and 10 in the Senate. And that's achievable. We can maybe do that. But if we don't, and they ignore us, they won't hear the bill that never gets out of committee, something like that, then we're going to sue. We're going to sue to either set aside rentals, or, even better yet, we're going to suggest that the court chose the wrong remedy. That instead of fixing apportionment districts under a supervisory scheme controlled by the court, they should increase representation so that each county has some. Whether we gain statehood or not, history will say who was right about that. Personally, I'm not a big time waster. I'm a business owner. I'm a deputy sheriff. I'm a ranch owner. I don't have time to waste. I wouldn't be here if I thought this was a waste of time. But if we gain nothing more than increase of representation, that's a pretty good day for all of the counties in Northern California, because we don't have that now. And once again, if we're afraid of the money, John Adams had a pretty interesting thing to say about the money. John was a pretty edgy guy. I'm sure his brother wished he was a little more quiet than he was. But he said, if you love your money more than your liberty, then we seek neither your counsel nor your arms. Get down on your hands and knees and lick the hand that feeds you. Because without liberty, the money means nothing. You won't be allowed to keep it, as Thomas Gordon said. I'm a rancher right now. They're coming after my ranch with Grazing Regulatory Action Plan, with IRWMs, groundwater management plans, ranch management plans due to TMDLs based on fraudulent science, plans to save animals that aren't in trouble, and plans for those plans if those plans fail. And the result of that is I'm being deprived of my property and the liberty to use my property, which makes a living for myself and my family. What we want to do with Jefferson is create a state with direct representation where you have the liberty to use your property to benefit your family. And Benjamin Franklin said, unless property is secure, liberty cannot exist. I've been all over the world. The difference between constitutional republic and tyranny is easy. It's simple. Under any form of constitutional republic, you wake up in the morning secure in the knowledge that the rules yesterday are the rules today, and they apply equally to everybody. And if they don't, you can complain to your representative to have that changed and have some modicum of opportunity to do so. Under any tyrannical form of government, you wake up in the morning and you ask yourself, what is the government going to do to me today? I'd like to ask you, it's a rhetorical question, what form of government do we live under in California right now? And what form of government would you like your children to wake up under tomorrow? I would be happy to answer any questions you have, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
First of all, are there any questions at this point from the board? Dan, Richard? Okay. What I would like to do is open it up to the public. The two microphones are open up here. Again, I laid out the rules. When you come up, please give us your name and where you live, county where you live.
Chairman, may I suggest some sort of order, perhaps alternating?
No, get in line, get in line. It is not a debate. It is not a debate. If we've heard it spoken already, let's not repeat it. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Hendrick. I live in Del Norte County,
Downward.
keeping the trend of speakers from outside the county at your meeting today. I'm here today to represent Keep It California PAC, which is a nonpartisan political action committee.
Let me ask you, Kevin, are you going to want 5 minutes here? Are you representing this
You know what? I
organization?
don't think I'll have to take 5 minutes, but if you allow me to make my short comments, I'll...
I'll allow you 5 minutes if you're representing that organization.
Thank you.
Okay.
I got
That means the rest of them have 3.
Yeah, no, I got the short straw, so I'm first.
All right, great.
So did that count toward my time? I'm just kidding.
No, go ahead and reset that, Julie.
Well, and to make your time even shorter, we do have some supporters here today that came to show support for Keep It California, but may not speak today. So if you want to stand up for California? Quietly. That was for the cameras, Mr. Chair. As I mentioned, Keep It California was formed, well, I didn't mention, but we were formed just over a month ago to address the question of state of Jefferson. The reason that I drove here from Crescent City today is that Del Norte County is the first and only state that actually has said no to the state of Jefferson. We had it on our ballot June of 2014, and 58% of the people in Del Norte County voted no to joining the state of Jefferson. So, and I was the campaign director of that, so I'm helping this new effort to carry on the information. I'm not from your county, so I have some questions for you to think about, and they are related to my experience. And my opinion first is that sooner or later the majority will decide that the state of Jefferson as proposed is not a viable proposition. The question is, how much time and goodwill do we want to waste before we decide this? Do we want to wait until after multiple meetings of the Board of Supervisors or after an expensive and divisive ballot measure? Shall we go along to see if the state legislature and the U.S. Congress approves this? Is it worth spending county time and resources to analyze and negotiate a divorce with California? And how will this affect our current relationship with our current elected officials while this process happens? Well, we agree that there are, you know what, I'm going to say that that's the first time I heard Mark Baird's presentation. He did a very nice job presenting your case, and I didn't interrupt him once. The mission of Keep It California PAC is to advocate for better representation of rural California and to oppose breaking away from California to form a new state. We believe that rural issues can be best addressed through cooperation. Keep It California will appeal to the moderate majority that exists in every county. Most people will not blindly follow ideology or emotion, but are capable of making rational and intelligent decisions when accurate information is provided. Keep It California PAC intends to ensure that everyone is aware of the risks and practical consequences of trying to form a new state before such a declaration is made. Keep It California is offering a nonpartisan platform to build and strengthen regional alliances across party lines in order to work together for the benefit of our rural California counties. We need our elected representatives to work for all of California, not just the densely populated urban areas. As citizens and community leaders, we have a responsibility to tell them what we are for, not just complain about what or who we are against. We ask you to join our efforts. We are stronger together.
Thank you, Kevin. I do want to point out again, this is not a debate, and this has been given to the state of Jefferson to make this an informational meeting, and I appreciate the information, and I appreciate questions that may come forward, but again, I don't want it in a debating manner, okay?
Does the board have any questions for me about the organization?
If they do, they'll get back to you. Thank you, Kevin.
I'll be in my seat.
Margie?
Hi, I'm Margaret Jenk. I'm a resident of Lake of the Pines here in southern Nevada County. and I'm going to be the coordinator for the Nevada County chapter of Keep It California, a nonpartisan organization, as Kevin mentioned. And actually, at first, when I heard this was going to happen, I thought, why are we wasting our time? But actually, I'm very glad that you set this up. It was very informative. And I actually think that Mark Baird made some suggestions, and so did the first man, I'm not sure of your name though, of ways that things might be different within the state of California. In fact, I didn't realize that when you suggested challenging the law, the current law, that it was a challenge to maybe ask for one representative per counties. So there were some new ideas today, and I appreciate that. I also would like to thank Mr. Haffey for providing some information on where the states stand on various criteria, where the counties, stand on various criteria. Those counties that have already either their board has made a declaration or their board has actually helped them set up an election in the coming year. And that, I think, is very helpful for Nevada County residents to know. So I thank you very much for doing that. It's actually on the board's website under the Friday memo, if anyone wants to look that up. And we have a copy too as well. We all understand, I think we have some agreement on the problem, that there are problems in Northern California, especially when you look at the charts that he prepared. The economy, access to health facilities, education at all levels, rebuilding an infrastructure that need to be addressed. We can agree on the problem, but we don't all agree that a separate state is a solution. It's a solution that would surely cause more problems in the short run, if not in the long run. Keep It California offers an opportunity to lobby legislatures on programs for which we can build a consensus with all parties concerned. You mentioned one already. I don't know that there's anyone in the room that thinks that fire tax is fair. Right now, we are focusing on SB 234, which, if passed, would pay the long overdue payment in lieu of taxes money owed to counties for the land set aside for wildlife protection. Something I think, again, we could all agree would be very valuable. We are asking people of all political persuasions to help us identify similar issues around which we could build a consensus for action. And you can find more information about us at keepitcalifornia.org. In conclusion, I respectfully request that if the state of Jefferson again appears on the board's agenda, that Keep It California be given time for a formal presentation as well. It's a lot easier than just 3-minute shots, so to speak. However, I really don't think that more time should be given until either the county or an independent firm does a complete financial impact analysis. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Marty. Okay, so we know we have a number of Keep It California folks here. If you want to raise your hand if you're for the state of Jefferson. Okay. Equal. Okay. That means not everybody has to testify.
Good afternoon. Norm Sauer, Nevada City. I am from the county. We've talked today about Reynolds versus Sims, one man, one vote. And that really was the beginning of the downfall of Northern California and its representation within the state of California. I was in the barbershop the other day and I read this article from the Territorial Dispatch and almost fell out of my chair. Wonder if the state of California ever heard of one man, one vote? In a vote to increase taxes, even the federal government gets to vote 9,716 times, and this is not a typo. Want a rigged election? In this mosquito district in Marin and Sonoma counties, government agencies can outvote the public, which has to pay the new tax. It emerges that under Proposition 218, every governmental agency in Marin and Sonoma County is allowed to cast ballots. This is because government properties have been found to be no longer exempt from taxation. This taxation is really fees, as I read it, since it's about a mosquito abatement district. However, Marin County government is assigned 6,211 worth of ballots. The 20 incorporated cities in the two-county district will also vote, and together they get 12,840 votes, ranging from Nevada's 1,624 to Ross's 94 votes. The largest single block of votes in the mosquito district fee election is cast by government. Individual homeowners' importance shrinks when Sonoma County government casts 6,211 ballots. The state, even it gets to vote, casts 9,167 ballots. Ditto the federal government, casting 9,716 votes. Add to that votes from every special purpose district, including schools, sanitary, fire, and water agencies. With low voter turnout for such election, if all government entities vote to impose the new and the real people vote no, the government will win. Who says we live in a free California? So my points are twofold. We don't have a constitutional republic in the state of California, number one. And number two, if you believe that one man, one vote is an impediment to changing the structure of the government of California or to allowing the formation of the state of Jefferson, you're kidding yourselves. It is not in cement.
Thank you, Norm.
And we need representation. Thank you.
I'm Weldon Travis from Rough and Ready in Hank Weston's District 4. I have a 6-page white paper here, which all of you have read, I presume. It was prepared by your employee, Chief Executive Rick Haffey, comparing our county with 8 other Jefferson counties. Mr. Haffey is known to me and many others as a rather liberally oriented employee.
We won't get into that, Weldon, okay?
I'm sorry?
All right, keep this to the state of Jefferson. We're not getting people involved here.
I can't hear you.
Weldon, we're not going to be abusing people's personality here, okay? I won't allow it. You
All
can
right,
speak
fine.
on the state of Jefferson.
Moving further along, you are our elected supervisors. I respect your efforts in fiscally conservative policies. All I'm asking and expecting is that you very carefully and thoughtfully consider all aspects of this movement as presented by our regional primary speakers here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Weldon.
My name's Greg Walsh. I live in Placer County, just over the Nevada County line. I happen to be a local real estate broker. I've been licensed for over 25 years, kind of familiar with business in the area. I've been self-employed all but 2 years of my life. What Mark Baird talks about and Stephen Baird talk about and my newfound friend Mark about the Constitution it warms my heart. You know, you can find nothing wrong with what they say. It's amazing. I'm not used to talking to a group like you. But anyway, the point of my being here today is I've read more books in the last 6 months than I have my whole life, and the reason is I went to a meeting told my wife about a year ago, I said, baby, we can't afford to live in California anymore. We're being overregulated and taxed out of the state. You know, we cannot retire here. I'm 65 years old. And I went to a meeting, and Mark Baird came and talked. And, you know, when you hear the language of the heart, the truth, the ringing truth, you know, I came home and I told her, I said, baby, we don't have to leave California. God, sorry about that. We're going to move California down south a little bit. So, with that said, let me put a stop on that timer. In the group. Like I said, I've read more books in the last 6 years than I have my whole life. I've read the Constitution. I'm on 500 and something pages into the Constitution, the book written by the Heritage Foundation, and it's absolutely heartwarming. It's wonderful. And like has already been said, our Constitution is being used for toilet paper today, you guys. It's bad. You know, Article 4, Section 4 of our Constitution, by the way, the Constitution is the law of the land. You violate it, you need to be justified on it, in my mind. And but Article 4, Section 4, it's a guarantee clause where the federal government guarantees us a republic form of government. That's what these gentlemen are talking about. It's being stripped from us daily. The overreach of the federal government and the state government right now is criminal. It is criminal. It's got to stop. The state of Jefferson needs to be created. We need a divorce from that Constitution that they've created in the state of California. They passed 936 new laws last year. We don't need lawmakers. We need law unmakers. And I know enough about Sacramento to know you cannot turn those people around. They're going, you know, California, excuse me, but is California going off the, what is it? Keep the California going off the cliff. I'm sorry. I don't want to be a part of the state of California going down. I was in an economic session in Dallas, Texas here 3 weeks ago, and if you think there's any economic recovery in this country, there has not been since '07. It's gone downhill, and it's continually going downhill. Douglas Duncan came and he's a chief economist for Fannie Mae, came and gave you the economic report. There is no recovery from this. There are jobs to be had in the state of Jefferson. State of California, it's going off the cliff. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. I'd like to point out too, we know the problems of the state of California here. I'd really like to focus on the formation of the state of Jefferson and just how that might work in any questions you might have involved if it actually was a state of Jefferson. I know you can get very emotional about it, but it gets repetitious, okay? George?
Yeah, excuse me, my name is Rebane, and I live in Nevada County. And I, too, want to thank you for hearing from the State of Jefferson Steering Committee. I am a proponent of advancing this historical experiment in constitutional self-government. It is indisputable that the voices and values of rural counties have been largely ignored in many state houses. Until recently, these counties have been resigned to their second-class status by staying the same old course. But to more of us, continuing to follow Rodney King's appeal to just get along brings to mind a famous man's definition of insanity. We realize that today the SOJ movement is still new, not well understood, and therefore opposed by more than the usual collectivists whose historical aim has always been to increase the size of Leviathan under which we labor today. For them, the creation of smaller and more like-minded jurisdictions such as SOJ is counter to the global unification goal they hold dear. It also appears that our Nevada County government staff has taken a strong stand against SOJ by suggesting that when compared to other so-called SOJ counties in Northern California, our county stands out as the best while still working together with Sacramento. However, to me, the staff's data tables tell a different and more illuminating tale. Historically, these rural counties have enjoyed productive economies based on agriculture, timber, mining, and recreation. But that was before Washington and Sacramento unleashed their massive bureaucratic assault, enforcing on them versions of dubious and scientifically unsupported bromides that promised to save the environment and stop man-made global warming. Today, the years of buckling under the diktats from the likes of the EPA, CARB, Water Resources Board, and other government agencies have devastated the region's economies and resulted in the dire statistics that our county staff has assembled. Nevada County's placement at the top of that sorry heap has less to do with any bounty from Sacramento than with our fortunate proximity to a large urban corridor and our historical but now diminishing industrial base. In short, the data you have been presented is simply a detailed epitaph in the making for rural counties that have gone along to get along with Leviathan, only to reap a dismal reward for their cooperation. To my mind, the only remaining viable alternative to SOJ is our joining or even leading the growing national movement to restore permissionless innovation by simply adopting "just say no" as a response to insane and inane regulations. As a fortuitous coincidence, today is the release date of By the People, Rebuilding Liberty Without Permission, from the celebrated political scientist and sociologist Charles Murray. This book is a how-to manual for America's small businesses and political jurisdictions going viral to effectively resist and turn back regulations which are, quote, pointless, stupid, and tyrannical, unquote. It contains
George,
a detailed...
wrap it up, please. George.
Pardon me?
Wrap it up.
It contains a detailed plan of how Americans can start saying no, one regulation at a time. And in the event you missed Murray's nationally published essay on the subject this weekend, I will gladly email you the link. Gentlemen, I suggest a change for the better is afoot across the land. Finally, all the arguments against SOJ rest on stasis projections. Stacism is the belief that we can see tomorrow only through the lens of current practices kept rigidly unchanged. Its corollary is, if it hasn't been done, it can't be done. But proponents of the state of Jefferson believe that in this most exceptional country the world has ever seen, the new and the never been tried has always served as a beacon to innovation, enterprise, and in the end, a better life. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I'm sorry to be rude. 3 minutes is really not a long time, I understand that, but we really need it to abide by it. Go ahead.
My name is Donna Reyes, and I have a letter of endorsement from a merchant in Grass Valley, from a business person in Grass Valley. I own an auto repair business that has been here in Grass Valley since 1942, and it gets more difficult every day just keeping up with the red tape that the state requires. Case in point, the timber industry in northern counties. Being under the authority of the Bureau of Automotive Repair, the California Air Resources Board, and OSHA, the cost is prohibitive. Due to the nature of the business, the cost of workman's compensation puts an extra burden on the bottom line. In addition, the California regulations require that our smog machines be linked with the DMV and their regulations. So this is why he's endorsing the movement for the state of Jefferson. He figures that we just do not need a bullet train.
What was your last name, ma'am?
Pardon me?
What was your last name?
I can't hear you.
What is your last name?
R-E-Y-E-S.
R-E-Y-E-S.
Yes.
Okay. And you're here in Nevada County?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Cindy Elsmore, and I'm the chair of the nonpartisan Keep It California PAC. Our mission is to advocate for better representation of rural California.
Where do you live? What
Pardon?
county?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to get to that. Sierra County.
Sierra County.
Yeah. Our mission is to advocate for better representation of rural California and to oppose breaking away to form a new state. I'd like to focus on the issues I know best as the former Sierra County Treasurer Tax Collector, and having worked in county government for over 30 years, the financial issues are formidable and complex. The state of Jefferson proponents have spent a lot of time on their financial viability model, but haven't even touched the surface of the complicated financial relationship with the state of California. It includes only cursory, unverified, and inaccurate information about the effect on the counties and K-12 schools. It does not include funding or an analysis of the effects on other governmental entities such as cities, fire districts, public utility districts, colleges, etc. I've attended several of the SOJ events and have been dismayed at the misinformation being disseminated. For instance, the assertion by Jefferson proponents that some of the property tax collected by Nevada County goes to the state is simply wrong. All of the 1% tax rate stays in Nevada County and is apportioned to the county general fund, cities, school districts, fire districts, and other governmental entities within the county. This group assumes that the new state would be paying a portion of California's debt based upon the percentage of population that becomes Jefferson. They assume Jefferson will be paying zero interest on that debt over 30 years, even though the interest rates on California bonds issued in the last 2 years averaged 5%. The bondholders won't sign up for that plan, I can tell you that. As a new state and with no credit record and unstable revenue, it's extremely unrealistic that Jefferson would be able to achieve the same low interest rate that California receives as a grade A municipal investment. Even using 5% interest rate, the debt payment doubles and Jefferson's debt would be rated as junk bonds. The financial situation overall does not favor a separation. Most of the counties in the proposed state receive far more money from state aid and grants than we send in taxes and fees. The taxes paid in urban areas subsidize our schools, roads, and services. In exchange, we are the stewards of the natural resources that the state depends on and the places that people love to visit on vacations. We have a good deal going. Let's fix the problems, not create more of them. Keep It California would like the opportunity to make a more detailed presentation. These financial issues are very complicated, and to more fully illustrate our concerns and reasons to remain in California and work together to make it better. We invite you to go to our website, keepitcalifornia.org, and find out more and join us.
Thank you. And you know, any of the speakers that has any written information is welcome to leave it with the clerk of the board, and we will certainly be handed out to us also. That goes to folks that I've cut a little short too.
Okay, thank you.
I have no written information to share with you. My name is Mike Thomas. I'm from El Dorado County, and I've got two of my dear friends, born and raised Grass Valley, in the audience with me today. I'm here to let you know that El Dorado County, we're fortunate to have a sheriff over there that's supporting us 100%. We just put a 4x8 sign right in his front yard. He is sick and tired of the fact that we're sending Sacramento $1 and we're getting back 17 cents for law enforcement. That's the kind of money that you can save within a county. Steve Baird's put together a model. I would highly suggest, and it's only a suggestion, that each one of you study that model till you understand it fully. Because to think that this cannot be done because of finances is putting your blinders on. This is a true model that the state of Jefferson is viable. Spend some time with this young man. He's put a lot of effort into this, and it is viable, and this county could be even better than it is. It's one of my favorite counties. Art Hooper. I interviewed up here with Art Hooper for a teaching job way back because I picked two schools to teach in, Ponderosa or Nevada Union. Art left that year, or I was hoping to get the job. But instead, I'm over in El Dorado County, which I love dearly, and I'm looking forward to our August meeting with our supervisors, and I'm going to suggest that each and every one of them sit down individually, or I understand you can actually do it two at a time, you just can't do a majority, but sit down so that you understand the model. And lastly, what I want to say is this. If you leave here with nothing more than understanding that we all understand, I think that there's a lack of representation in this state, understand that by signing a declaration means nothing. It doesn't commit you to any money, doesn't commit you to anything. It allows the process to go forward. And when we're in Sacramento in January, and that's how close the time limit is, in January, Nevada County should be there. You should have a representative there sitting at the table so that you have your own representation for your county. You owe it to your constituents. And one last thing, the thing I read from Keep It California, the very first thing that I read was that we get more from California than I'm going to tell you something right now. If that was the case, we won't need any votes from our representatives. We can go down there and have a vote. They'd vote to get rid of us. Thank you very much.
All right, Jim. Your turn.
My name is Jim Jacobs. I live 5 minutes from this building. I'm 81 years old, and I can't tell you what I had for breakfast yesterday, but I can tell you what happened when I was younger. I have a very good memory for that. At 16, I joined the Navy Reserve. 19, I activated for the Korean War. When I was 20, I was discharged and married and had a child. I borrowed 2 months' pay from my father. I got on the Ontario Fire Department. I borrowed 2 months' pay from my father, and I bought a brand new 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. I joined the LA Fire Department in 1962. 1964, President Johnson started the War on Poverty, which isn't going too good. 1968, I was working in Watts, and I was involved in the Watts riots. I was on the good guys' side.
Hey, Jim,
What?
get to your point.
I know.
3 minutes.
This is my last point. My last point.
Okay.
I want to have it where the younger people can stay in this county and get a good job and get a house of their own. And I think it's doable. I don't think they can do it the way things are going right now. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Fran Friedel. I'm a resident of the south part of Nevada County. Supporting the new state will give everyone an immediate 10% pay increase by abolishing the personal income tax. Gas will cost less without the extra gas taxes, and we won't have to worry about any new gas taxes like the 3 to 5 cents per gallon proposed by Southern California legislators who don't represent us. We won't be subject to the $35 increased cost to register our cars, or the regulatory burden cast upon us by the hundreds of boards and commissions established by the dearth of laws that threaten our freedom to operate a business in our state. The new North California will be free of burdensome laws, and so will our county. It's a win-win future for everyone. Let's move forward rather than stay in this quagmire that threatens our liberty. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran.
I'm Cheryl Heward. I'm a resident of Nevada City. I live in the unincorporated area. My family's been in this county since, well, one of my grandfathers was a blacksmith for the mine, so anyway, I have a couple of grandparents that they had a 10-acre organic farm on Banner Mountain. They had some of the best vegetables in the county. They are in the Hall of Fame right over there at the courthouse. They were complaining about taxation without representation in 1957. For those people in the room today, they came up with a name for their little 10-acre farm, and it was the Republic of North California. So that might be a solution for not leaving California. I know none of us are stuck on the name Jefferson, but that kind of has been when people, excuse me, I'm yelling in there, ever since the, sorry, I thought somebody was saying something to me. It's hard to sit down here and talk. I don't know why. All of a sudden, everything I was thinking, I've just kind of got all jumbled up in there. I guess what my concern is that we need to be able to pass on a legacy that's filled with liberty, not regulation. The people that started this nation fought to have liberty. They fought for private property rights. They fought to be able to raise their children in a country that was free. And with all the regulations that we have, it's becoming almost impossible because we have no representation. And the last thought I'd like to leave you with, my father and my brother have been loggers in this county since I was born, before I was born. Not my brother, because he was born later, but anyway, 20 years ago, they were logging over on where the King Fire happened last year. They were shut down because of regulations and spotted owl. They got kicked out of there. 20 years later, it burned up, and you know what it looks like now. Guess who's logging it? And it's just burned out husks. My brother and his son. So I would just like to put to you, our representatives, please give this a chance. Thank you.
Just a point, your grandparents raised great produce, and they're on the Hall of Fame at the Nevada County Fair also.
My name's Victoria Brandon. I'm a Lake County resident, drove over here today to hear if there was anything new to be said. Not very much. We've heard these presentations before. But I wanted to make Lake
County.
I wanted to make a correction of what may have been a mistaken implication. When Mr. Mark Baird, not Mr. Steve Baird, who's not related, said that there were 8 counties which had already indicated support for this. I don't see any way that that number can be arrived at without including Lake County, and Lake County has not expressed support for this. It came before us several times. On one occasion, there were a series of votes which were really so confused, County Council said they had to do it over. When they did do it over, there was no support for actually going forward with the resolution at that time. What they decided to do instead was to take it to a vote of the people instead, believing that it was not the purview of the supervisors to make such a really momentous decision as splitting a sovereign state of the United States and declaring their county's willingness to do this. Just one other small point from what I did hear today. The proponents of the state of Jefferson have frequently said, okay, if this does not happen, and I think everybody agrees it's an extremely unlikely event for this split of the state to occur, okay, then they'll bring a lawsuit to try to overturn Reynolds versus Sims. Why not just go ahead with the litigation if they think this has got legal standing, and go ahead and do the lawsuit and increase representation if that's what they really want, and see what happens there. It would save us all a lot of time and energy that we've got to devote to other matters rather than talking about splitting our state.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Randy Sutton. I'm a resident and a business owner from Lake County, or maybe I should say have been a business owner. I'm selling my business because, and by the way, that means 5 employees are not employed anymore, because I got so tired of spending more time attempting to reconcile state and federal regulations that I was doing more time on that than I was trying to help clients. I'll also tell you I'm a dad, and I just got a wedding invitation to my son. But I'm going to have to spend all day on an airplane and driving to be there, because when he tried to get a job in California, he couldn't do it. Bottom line, in 1992, 27 counties voted in favor of being part of a new state. That went to the state assembly voted in favor. It went to the state senate holed it up in committee, never let it come out. So much for respective will of the people. That is an example of the history of how our state government treats us. There have been several other examples today. I want to ask you this. Is it more reasonable to expect that the good people of the state of Jefferson, working together, pooling all of our resources, all of our intelligence, that we could actually do some things when we have a state government with representation that would improve our lot? Or is it more reasonable to think that a state political establishment, which has been ignoring us for years, for decades, is suddenly going to somehow volunteer to reform itself and start doing what's right for northern rural California? I just ask you, which is more reasonable to expect? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Nancy, you're going to be next, but I want to point out it's 3 o'clock, son of a gun. So make your presentations quick if you could. Try not to repeat what's already been said, okay?
Are you supervisors from 8 to 5?
Yes, I am.
24/7.
You want to sit down,
Are
Brian?
you supervisors from 8 to 5 or 24/7?
That's not happening, Tony. It's not
We're
happening,
going to have
buddy.
another meeting down here and have
Sit
an
down, buddy.
evening
Sit
for the
down.
folks that voted for you.
Sit down. Nancy, please go ahead.
Thank you. I would just like to comment on 2 things that have been said about us. Number 1 is that we're wasting people's time in the state of Jefferson doing what we're doing. We hope we're not. We may be, But you know, if our founding fathers felt they were wasting their time taking on the biggest army in the world at the time, I wonder what we would be today. Certainly not the country that we've come to enjoy. The second thing that is being said is that we are not building bridges to Sacramento. And we find it, quite frankly, difficult to build bridges when you need to negotiate and you are in a situation of non-representation in your negotiations. That very often does not work out well. So I would like to see us build bridges. We are very much in favor of building bridges, but we would like to build bridges that bring our business back to Northern California, that bring our children home to work here. And most of all, I think we want to build bridges to freedom and bridges to earned prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
My name is Sam Toll, and I live in Placer County. I moved here from Nevada when I quit my job as a dishwasher, seeking a better economic future. I purchased a computer from Steve Jobs in 1984. I brought that computer back to the Sacramento Valley, where I was able to sell publishing systems to a variety of different companies, including McClatchy, Aerojet, and up here in Nevada County, both Litton Labs and Grass Valley Group. I employed, at the peak of my company's operation, I employed nearly 60 people. I had 5 locations, and I had approximately $4 million in sales. When I first started my business, I estimate that the amount of money that I spent with fees and taxes and licenses and other regulatory expenses was about 3% of my cost of goods sold. When I was forced to close the company in 2008, courtesy of our national financial disaster, which forced 30 living wage jobs to no longer exist, I estimate that my ratio of cost of goods sold was about 18%. Some people call the regulatory agencies an alphabet soup, the BOE, the EDD. To me, they were more of an alphabet epoxy. They prevented me from enjoying the ability to grow, and when the end of my business took place, they were really a strangling collection of burdensome fees and red tape. So a lot of conversation has been reflecting around representation. Recently, I went to the state of California and I applied to be a lobbyist. The reason I did that was because I could not seem to get the time of day with my elected representatives when I went to meet them both in person or called them on the phone. I can tell you that because I do not represent a corporation that can provide a financial incentive for my elected representatives to listen to me, in fact, I'm simply representing the people and perhaps myself, I continue to receive a stone wall of a barrier in trying to access and even get the time of day. I look forward to the state of Jefferson being a place where we can return to the beacon or the city on the hill that de Tocqueville once referred to us, where the light of liberty shines brightly upon everyone, and we can together move forward to create a state where we can fulfill the promise of the ability to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, however we so define it. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Sam.
Good afternoon. My name is Diana Baird from Placer County. My husband has relatives buried here in Nevada City area. He's a 5th generation Californian. I'm a 2nd generation Californian, and I love California as it once was. I want to see the state fixed by the way that Mark Baird had explained. I think it is very doable. I also want to be part of this movement because for all of the military people from way back when our country was first born, they made a legacy for us, and I would like to leave a legacy for my children. My in-laws used to live in California. They now live in Arizona because they too are paying an extra 10%. in taxes, so they decided to move. So now I have to fly to Arizona. I hate Arizona. It's very dry. I am a water person, and so when I'm asked to go there for Christmas, I don't want to do it again. I want to see them in their home here. And also, what I like about the movement here is because every time these gentlemen speak about the facts, they cite where they are getting those facts. And when I'm looking at the opposition, I would like to understand where they get their facts from. And so when you are reviewing your information, please be sure to check the facts that are cited and make your own decision. The people that have elected you and put you into office are relying on you to make a sound decision. And I thank you very much for allowing this group to come before you and to express our desires. And also, being from Placer County, right now we're an island trying to join this movement. So with Nevada County joining in, we would be the next connection, and I look forward to that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Claudia Taylor, and I live in Lake of the Pines, southern Nevada County. First of all, I would like to say that I really respect the board's ability and their accomplishment of handling the finances and administration of this county well. But I also would like to point out to you that just think of, with the freedoms that will be offered and available with the state of Jefferson, as you've heard today, don't you think you'd have even better opportunity to govern well and to actually represent your people better? Just think about that. What my attraction to this movement has been, it's not just about money. It's not just about economics. It's about the representation, as you've heard over and over and over again. One of the other things we've heard in the room today, which just rings to me, is this old statement: you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. And I've heard some statements made today that sounds to me that's what they might want to do. And I don't think that'll work. I think all of us know that that probably never will work, especially when it comes to the government of the state of California. It is not going in that direction. It never will. We all know that. So I respectfully ask that each of you look at your constituents in the eye and say, I want to represent you in a very heartfelt way. Yes, I can administrate your money well, but there's other considerations, and you've heard them all today, very, very eloquently stated. So I respectfully ask that you vote when it comes to the point of voting, and be a part of the discussion. Like it was said before, it's no skin off your nose to say, okay, let's put us at the table so we can be a part of this discussion. It's very, very important that you be a part of that discussion. So thank you very much for your time today, and I respectfully ask that you seriously consider this.
Okay, I see an end of the line up there, and that's going to be the last person. Tony, you better not yell at me, okay?
My name's Todd Anderson. I live in Butte County, but I've also owned homes in Placer County, Plumas County, Santa Clara County, and I'm looking for a home now because I just recently sold mine and looking to start a business. So I'm here in your beautiful county looking at the representation. First off, this action, you need to have standing with the courts. So filing a declaration with the state, then when the state denies you, if they deny you, it gives you standing with the court. You have to list your grievance with the government before you can get, and then the government has to say no. Then you'll have standing. Then you can go to court and ask. And then once you go to court, you have to have some kind of remedy to that standing. So if the state denies the county or the state of Jefferson, then you sue in court, you'll have standing, and the remedy is representation. So I would like to add a quick story of representation the way it is now in California. I had a very unique piece of property with a very old water right, one of the oldest water rights, decreed water rights in Plumas County, pre-1914 decreed water rights. I addressed the State Water Control Board. They then addressed me to my representation at the Capitol. This is all in Sacramento. When I went to talk to my representation, I got literally nowhere. This is the state that had blocked a diversion box. My representation would not do anything for me. And I believe they're the same representatives that you have right now in this county. So having one senator and one assemblyman per county seems to be a great idea, because I'm just 1 in 500,000 to my assemblyman, and 1 in $750,000 to my senator. I don't mean anything to them. But yet I have issues that needed to be addressed concerning state agencies, and I couldn't get anywhere. So thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Todd. Don?
Yeah, my name is Don Conan, Nevada County, chairman of the Libertarian Party in Nevada County. Also been involved with the Christmas Tree Farm for about 40 years here in Nevada County. Hold a limited timber operator's license. And as a libertarian, I can tell you that being in a district that goes from the Oregon state line down to Placer County, no third party is ever going to win that district. It's the largest district in the state. So our voice is totally silenced, and even under the top two primary system, basically we have our general election in June, and then we just have a runoff. So we really never get the press that we would have gotten in the old days, and our ideas never get aired, even if we're not going to get elected. So I know a little bit about a lack of representation. I think that if the state of Jefferson were to reduce some of these, obviously we'd have a reduced size in the assembly districts. If you get down to a 40,000 person assembly district, now a person, doesn't matter what party they're in, can actually go around and talk to most of the people in their district. They get a chance. It's not all about the money. They can actually hoof it and get their message out. So I'm all for reducing the size of Jefferson, and I don't think it will be a one-party state. I think that the chances are that it'll be a multi-party state, and I think that's a good thing. As a Christmas tree farmer and my knowledge of forestry, I just read an article from George Runner of the Board of Equalization, and one of his statements about the fire tax that they want to eliminate and put another tax in its place, he said, "It's hard to imagine why the legislature would replace a bad policy with an even worse one." This guy is a bureaucrat, technically, so from his information, he said would be replace the $80 million fire protection fee scheme with a $500 million insurance surcharge scheme that will suck millions of dollars out of the economy and result in more businesses moving out of California. So we don't see any improvement in California. It's the same thing. They're overwhelmingly in debt. The one thing I would like you to look at on the Keep It California website, it says
would you invest in the state of Jefferson? Well, I think they should say, would you invest in the state of Jefferson, or would you invest in the state of California that carries more debt than any state? If you looked at it from a business standpoint, you'd never invest in California. And we don't want to either. We want to be separate. Let them build their bullet train. Let them have their end of the state. And I think we can improve this through forestry and management of our resources. We're standing over the richest ground in the country with gold mines. So we should be financially viable, I would say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don.
Dan Chance, Nevada County, from Chicago Park, actually. This is like the second time I've heard a discussion about splitting California. I remember 25 years ago, I was living in Monterey County at the time, and the discussion was dividing California in half, and the southern Monterey line seemed like a good line, but then San Luis Obispo County said, we don't want to be part of Southern California. And then Santa Barbara County said, we don't want to be part of Southern California, so that kind of died. But I was kind of supportive of splitting California a little bit. We are oversized, and part of the problem with California is we're a victim of our own success. If you go back years, most of these towns are small towns. I grew up in Santa Rosa. There's 40,000 people there at the time. Now it's 150,000. I looked into Jefferson in the 1980s because there was a big barn somewhere in I-5 that said Jefferson, and I did some research back then, and back in the 30s it kind of came and went, and that in those days timber was king. There was a lot of timber industry, mining and fishing. The fishing industry is almost gone. The timber industry, as he was discussing earlier, has been heavily impacted. One of the things we have to think about is a lot of these resources are coming, not from other states, but they're coming from British Columbia, Alaska, where there are massive tracts of wood that they could harvest, clear cut instantly, and nobody sees it, so it doesn't, and nobody notices it. One of the concerns I have is also that some of these counties, the demographics. I'm no longer a spring chicken myself, so I could say that a lot of the age of the people in some of these counties are in their 60s. I think Nevada County is almost 65 or 60. If you're going to create a state, you really need a diversified community with young and old people. And so one of the discussions that, I'm supportive as long as it is feasible, but there has to be, like a lot of the services you think about, we're going to lose here. Cal Fire, that's a nice bomber sitting out at that airport. Can you pay for it? And that's one of the things, you have to get a whole bunch of those bombers all through the state of Jefferson. Insurance coverage for health coverage, I don't know if everybody's for it or against it. Obviously, you have Caltrans. Everybody says, well, they lean against a shovel, but you need somebody to take care of some of the roadways. And one of the things I think the problem with California is we give $1 and we only get 70 cents back from the federal government. Why do we lose that money? Because we have to pay for welfare states. There's over 30 welfare states throughout the United States. And okay. And just as long as it's just not another welfare state, I'd be very concerned about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Hi, I'm Bob Kruger. I live in Grass Valley. I'm very much indebted to the state of California. I love California, and I love being a Californian. If this were to become the state of Jefferson, I would immediately move to another part of the state. I'm very indebted. When I came out to California in 1961 after getting out of the Air Force, California provided me with a college education at no cost. It cost me absolutely nothing, and I was from out of state. So I'm very indebted to the state of California. I have a business here in town. If I would have to move that business to another location in California, I own an adult residential facility in Grass Valley. I serve developmentally handicapped adults, of which my son is one, If this were to come to the state of Jefferson, there would be no resources for these folks. They would all have to either move out or lose the benefits that they have. California is a very progressive state, and I appreciate that. And the handicapped in this state are treated extremely well. They get benefits that they will not get in any other part of the United States that I know of. I've had experience with that. So I guess in summarization, you know, I do love California. I am always a Californian, and I would have to remain a Californian, and I would have to move my business to another part of the state if this were to become a part of Jefferson. So I'm all in favor of keeping it California, and that's my stand.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
It has been said that there is
Can
nothing...
you give us your name and...
Wade Friedel, Nevada County.
Oh, of course.
It has been said that there is nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come. Today we are here to announce that the idea of the state of Jefferson has come. We are here to announce it, but we are not the idea itself. The idea is represented by a great tidal wave of public opinion. And we are only riding on the crest of that wave, the heralds announcing its arrival. And when I think of the outcome of this wave, the sea change of public policy that it represents, I am reminded of Shakespeare's Hamlet, in which Hamlet says, "If it be not now, it shall be to come. If it be not to come, it shall be now. But whether it be now or to come, it shall be." Today, we are here to invite the citizens of Nevada County to grab a surfboard and join us in riding this wave into the 21st century.
Thank you, Wade. Sir?
My name is Dwight Droz. I grew up in Placer County, and I reside in El Dorado County now. And I'm in support of the state of Jefferson because I don't see opportunity in the future. I'm 30 years old. I'm probably the second youngest person in this room. I don't think that there's not young people involved. There is. I was in the Army National Guard at the 184 Air Assault here in Auburn, and I joined after 9/11 because of what happened. And I didn't just join the military as military police. I went infantry. I was willing to sacrifice my life for this country, but I don't think that California flag deserves to have a republic on it anymore, because we are not a democracy. A democracy is the majority rules. A republic is the majority rules as long as it's not unconstitutional, and then it's your job to tell that majority that they can't stomp on the majority's rights. And that's why I support the state of Jefferson. I don't think California deserves to have that on that flag. And if my county does not sign and we do not join, we do not have this state, we're not part of it, and you guys are, I would be happy to move here. Happy to move here. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Greg.
Hi, I'm Chuck Brazel from El Dorado County. First, I'd like to compliment everybody in this room. I consider all of us patriots. If we were not a patriot and didn't care, none of us would be here. Before the carb tax took effect, I know of 2 truckers that moved to Nevada. One was just a single trucker. He couldn't afford $23,000 to bring his truck in compliance. I know there's a guy sitting over here, had a used tractor, paid $7,000 for it. He didn't have $20,000 to fix it. Another trucker had a lot of heavy equipment. He and his family, children, grandchildren, all moved to Nevada to get away from the carb tax. The problem is the carb tax shouldn't be affecting us. We don't have the smog up here. It's coming from the valley. We don't have the water problems up here. That's coming from incompetence in Sacramento. And speaking of that, heard on KFBK that I think the number is 2 to 6 steelhead were released. I'm sure you may have heard it in the American River, and they dumped hundreds of thousands of gallons in the water to help those fish get to their destination. KFBK said that volume of water would supply 170,000 families for 1 year. Now, I don't believe California cares about us as much as they do the environment and the fish. And I don't know what they're going to do if we don't exist. Change is hard to come by. Most people resist it and they don't like it. If you're happy with what you got, stay with it. If you believe that there's a dream out here that's reachable, we ask for your consideration on this matter. And let me tell you, to those who think California is fixable, the Terminator hit town. The Terminator. I can fix California. He didn't say he would be Bach. He was neutered by Sacramento. They took the Terminator's nuts and he went home with a minute bag. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. No comment.
My name is Al Vaccaro. I live in Grass Valley. Sorry I hodled at you. There's several things that went on in this state that are going on right now that I don't like. I didn't vote on them. One of them is that train. Did anybody ever think to overlay the route of that train over the San Andreas Fault? Because that's where it is. And can you imagine that train doing 200 miles an hour and have an earthquake? They'd be picking bodies up with a blotter. And the water tunnel. They voted the, excuse me.
What was that yours?
My wife's calling me. That means my phone at home is fixed after 5 days. The peripheral canal has been voted down about 4 or 5 times. How this water tunnel got through, I haven't the foggiest idea, but I didn't vote for it. I didn't even see it on the ballot. And we are being left behind by the legislature. They are racing forward, south. Nothing's happening in the north. If you look at this state, water goes south, electricity goes south, everything goes south. The government is governing for Los Angeles. And what does Los Angeles have? They don't even make movies there anymore. They go to Canada. Labor's cheaper up there in Canada, and they have better places to make movies. And they've been cutting back on water. They cut back the farmers 4 years ago. Every year they cut back a little bit more. There's people that are tearing out almond orchards because they don't have water to water them. And what does that do? The California agriculture feeds most of the world, and we're not doing it anymore. And my last comment is that you guys better have another one of these meetings. You talk to these people for and against Jefferson, and have it in the evening, say at 7 o'clock, where the people that voted for you can come in and talk. Thank you.
Thank you all. All right, so that ends the public portion of the comments. I'm going to let you guys summarize, since again this is your presentation today, but I first want to ask the supervisors if there's any questions that they may have. Supervisor Anderson?
No.
Supervisor, no. Okay. Then we'll wrap it up with you, Mark, if you would. Maybe you can address some of the issues that may have come up.
I really appreciate the time you've given us. I know this has gone long, so I'll be brief. We envision a state that has at least one state senator for each county, no less than one state assembly person per county, more by population. 1 per 40,000 is what we envision, or 30,000. It depends on how many counties we end up with, and we can't know that yet. We're still working on that. We imagine a state that has a part-time legislature, although that will be for the Constitutional Convention to decide. We don't need 571 state agencies. We can envision a very efficient government through electronic technology and computer technology, and we're in contact with companies in Silicon Valley that say they can deliver this very easily, very cheaply. We don't need the mountains and mountains of bureaucrats and the masses of tax money they require to run a small rural state. And as far as our happiness quotient and the the fact that if we form a state, we're not going to have roads and we're not going to have doctors and nurses. I just sit here and I have to shake my head and I wonder, how do 49 states that don't have the name California live with themselves? They all have roads, doctors, nurses, police, and I say, I am not anti-government. I'm not anti-law. I am a police officer. I see how this is going. Not well. The state of Jefferson will work. It will work efficiently. It will work because local decisions will be left to you. The lion's share of the power will be with the county. The state's job will be to liaise between counties, administer federal programs, divvy up federal money as it comes, and to help you conduct the people's business. When you call the state engineer's office, they are going to say, yes, sir, what can I do for you? When you call the State Department of Agriculture, they're going to say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, what can I do for you today? And how fast do you need it? That's the kind of state we want to restore a constitutional republic, because as de Tocqueville said in 1830 in his book Democracy in America, the greatest form of government known to man is the township or the county, because you can look your representation in the eye. This country worked when we had it. California worked when we had it. California does not work now. We have no animosity toward California. This is a win-win. We can't imagine and cannot help Southern California with their problems. I don't even know what they are. Large infrastructure, gangs, water projects, freeways, things like that. We are no help to them, and we don't contribute to that conversation. They, in turn, do not understand how we live, and they are no help to us and do not contribute to the conversation, except in negative ways, as you've heard again and again. So this is a win-win for California. As Stan Statham said, California is ungovernable. It's ungovernable. We have to start over. We've got to get a reboot. We have to do a corporate spin-off so that the division of Northern California can be free with local wisdom and local talent to succeed. And that's what we imagine happening. So it has nothing to do with politics for me, and not for the people that I know. This has to do with representation first and always. And so if you have any questions based on that, I'll hand you each a card. You're welcome to call my cell phone night or day. If you have financial questions or any other mechanical questions about the formation, the operation of government, I welcome the discourse. We welcome the addition of your wisdom and your thoughts as to how to make this state better and how to make it work. My last statement that I'll make is, this doesn't cost you a thing to advance the conversation and buy yourselves a ticket at the table. The conversation will take place. We have enough counties to do that now. All you're doing is creating standing for the Nevada County government in that discussion when it takes place. The harm is lack of representation. At the very minimum, the remedy is more representation, which I think we all see would benefit all of us. And one last thing. As we go forward in this, remember again that the lawsuit, I know that our opposition says the lawsuit is going to be expensive and time-consuming, and I've heard the West Virginia 50-year thing a million times. We don't want your money for the lawsuit. We won't take your money. This is a movement of the people, by the people. This is a grassroots movement. We don't even have a membership list. We don't even know who's in our group from one day to the next. What we're going to do to fund our lawsuit is ask 10,000 people to give $100 each. And my check for $1,000 will be the first one in the barrel, because as a citizen of this state, it is up to me to petition my government for redress of grievance and have that petition answered through representation. The people are going to pay for this lawsuit. As far as division of state efforts, the case of Virginia versus West Virginia, I'd say that 50 years was pretty well spent. West Virginia agreed on the amount of debt they were going to pay right from the beginning. In the 50 years ensuing, bonds were bought, bonds were sold, things were done, but the justice of the Supreme Court said that the amount that they would settle for is like $7,500,000, which is 2.8% or 23.8% of Virginia's debt, and that they would send them to conference over the interest. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to refute the emotional argument, but I'm going to try it very quickly. No one said when we took our debt away that we expect there won't be any interest. No one said that. You can't find that in any of our literature. In order to have integrity and to do the honorable thing, we are willing to accept our portion of California's debt. According to the state's legislative analyst's office and the state's attorney general, Camilla Harris, that would be about 3% of California's debt. That's achievable if we do it now. If we wait till it's $20 trillion, we won't be able to afford it and we won't be able to do it. We will own the assets that lie within the state of Jefferson. That's according to the LAO report and the state's attorney general. Those aren't my statements, and I can show them to you in print if you doubt that. We will own the assets that formerly belonged to the state of California. Everybody has road workers. We're going to have them too. Everybody has police. We're going to have them too. We'll have doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, nurses, police, everything. Everything every other state has, we'll have. And we're going to pay for them much the same way as every other state pays for them. But what we will have is opportunity. And we will have liberty. And, our liberty was a gift to us. We didn't pay for it. It was paid for, if you read the last paragraph of the Declaration of Independence, with the lives, the treasure, and the sacred honor of our fathers. But it is our job to secure liberty for our children. And that's why I'm here. That's my mission. I'm retired. I have nobody to be responsible for. I spend my own money. I don't get money from anybody, no political party, no business backing, no benefactor, no contribution from anybody. We all pay our own way here. We all have. We're not asking for anyone's money. What we're asking for is that you consider securing liberty for the people of Nevada County. Thank you, sirs.
Thank you, Mark. Mark, if you leave your contact information, you can give it to Eddie, and he can get it to the clerk of the board. And I want to thank you for your presentation. I want to thank you for the comments from both sides, and I want to thank you for the civility of this hearing. And with that, we're adjourned.